Okay, we're going to talk about theoretical and experimental probability today. So it's two different types of probability. Theoretical is what should happen in an experiment. Probability that is determined by doing math. Experimental probability, what has happened in an experiment. Probability that is determined by the results of an actual experiment. So theoretical in our own words, favorable outcomes over possible outcomes. I just like to make it short. Should over could. So what should happen over what could happen. And experimental, what happened, or we could say results, over total. So how many times did you flip the coin? How many times did it land on heads would be experimental. Theoretical, it should land on heads 1 out of every 2 flips. An important note, as the number of trials increase in an experiment, the experimental probability gets closer to the theoretical. So theoretical is like in theory, what should happen. Experimental, you are doing something. So let's look at some of these. Jimmy is rolling a dice in a game. So that would be experimental. He is doing something. Alice calculates, there's our keyword, the probability of winning the school raffle. That's theoretical. Mark and Jose determine the likelihood. So they're not actually rolling them, they're determining them, so it's theoretical. So you're given a number cube with numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if you're given a cube, there are 6 sides. If it doesn't say that specifically, know that the cube has 6. Find the probability of the following. So 1, there's 1 out of 6. An even number, we have 2, 4, and 6. So we have 3 out of 6. We could think of that as a percentage. First, let's simplify it to 1/2. And then if we wanted to make it 50%. Ooh. A 3 or a 4. So there's 1 3, there's 1 4, so that would be 2/6. Simplify, 1/3. A 7. Tricky. There's not a 7 on there, so 0. A number greater than 2. So we have 3, we have 4, 5, and 6, so there are 4 out of 6. Simplify. Not 5 or 6, so we could have a 2, or excuse me, a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. So 4 out of 6. Simplifies to 2/3. So that is all theoretical. That's what should happen. I didn't roll the cube, didn't do any experiments. Now, a survey is taken at a local middle school. Results are presented in this table. Use the chart to find the probability. What's the probability that a student prefers to read a magazine? So magazine is 150 out of total. $500. What's the probability that a student prefers to listen to music? 275 out of 500. Suppose there are 1,000 students. How many would prefer to read a book? Use a proportion. So I'm looking for X out of 1,000. Reading a book is 75 out of 500. Cross multiply 500x. And x equals 150. Could I have done that an easier way? 500 times 2 gives me 1,000. 75 times 2 would give me 150. But it asks specifically, use a proportion. So this time, we're going to look at experimental and theoretical. So I'm using a standard deck of cards. There are 52 cards in the deck, and she recorded what she got when she picked a card. So based on her results, that means we did an experiment of probability of selecting a heart. So there are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hearts. How many times did she draw? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. She's selected 30 times. Theoretical of selecting a heart. Hopefully we know there are 4 different suits in the standard deck of cards. So I know it's going to be out of 52. There are 16 of each one. So that simplifies to 1/4. I didn't simplify number 1. What could I go back and divide both by? Divide both by 3. So I would have 3 over 10. So this one was theoretical. This was looking at, there are 52 cards in the deck. 16 of them are hearts. Simplify it. Based on her results, what's the experimental of selecting a diamond or a spade? So a diamond or a spade, 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18. And we said we got 30 earlier because we added them all together. Can I simplify? Sure, let's divide by 6. And I get 3/5. What is theoretical probability? So if there's 16 diamonds and there's 16 spades, that means there's 32 out of 52, which should be half. Oh, caught my mistake. Let's fix that. There's 13 of each one. I made a mistake up there too, so let's go back. This should be 13. There are 13 and 13, which makes 36. I knew that wasn't right, and I'm sure if I was in class, you all would have corrected me, which would have been awesome. All right, moving on. Let's take a peek at number 3. Craig has a 6-sided number cube. He rolls it 250 times and records it. Based on the data shown, the probability of rolling which number has a larger theoretical than experimental? So theoretical probability for all of them is going to be 1/6. I'm going to go ahead and make that into a decimal, which is 0.16 repeating. Okay, so that's theoretical. Each number has 1 out of 6 chances of it landing on. Now, for the 1, 37 out of 250. And I'm going to change that into a decimal, 0.148. So, which is bigger? It says which has a larger theoretical. So 1.6 compared to 1.4. That one is larger. Let's look at 2. If I did 52 out of 250. 0.208. That's not larger, so that one doesn't have it. For rolling a 3, 62 out of 250. 0.248. Not smaller than theoretical. Rolling a 4 is 16 out of 250. I'm going to bet it works because 37 did, and yes it did, 0.064. So that one is smaller. 37 worked. I wonder if 44 is small enough to be smaller than our theoretical. 0.176. That is not smaller. 39. 0.156, and that one is smaller. So for that question, you're going to see more like this. You have to find theoretical of it first and then find the experimental of each option, each outcome, and compare the two. Number 6, Peter picks one bill at a time from the bag. He repeats this process 100 times and record it. So this is 28 out of 100, 14 out of 100, 56 out of 100, and 2 out of 100. And it says, based on the table, which bill has an experimental of 725? So I want to find which one of those is equal. So I could simplify, divide this one by 4, and I get 7 out of 25. Easy peasy, I found it on the first shot. Number 11 is just like the one we did where we're finding which one has theoretical is greater than experimental. So you're going to have to find, so let's see, theoretical is going to be 1 out of 8. Now I need to go down here and find the experimental of each one and see. So for 8, it would be 2 out of, how many spins did she do? And that P8 just means the probability of landing on 8. So 2 out of 7, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 2 out of 20, which is 1/10. So if we need to change it to decimals, excuse me, 0.125. So is theoretical greater than experimental? Yep, it worked on that one. Okay, so you can finish the rest of that one. I only did the first one for you. Number 12 is the same as what we just did a second ago. All right, so your task, you're going to go on Alex, do the experimental theoretical, make sure you retake it till you get a 100. Make sure last class on this probability is at a 100, and then finish up these pages and check them on the Google site.